Welcome back to the confessional booth. I'm Marie Wagner, and I'm a certified sex, love, and relationship coach and de-armoring body worker. This is a space where we bring voice to what has been hidden, where we explore the things that shape us beneath the surface. And it's a place where shame and other internal blocks begin to lose their grip. As a result, we can start to experience more freedom, energy, joy, pleasure, and to ultimately feel more fully yourself. Today, I want to talk about sex, power, visibility, and shame, and some ways they interconnect. Let's start with a question that has gotten me so curious. Why is it that sex is such a shame target? Of all the things human beings do, of all the natural expressions of being alive, why has sexuality become one of the primary places where shame takes root? Why is it that so many people can talk about work, finances, parenting, politics, spirituality, and countless other aspects of life? And yes, shame can exist in any aspect of our life, it's true. Yet, the moment the conversation moves towards sex, desire, fantasy, pleasure, arousal, or intimacy, something changes. The eyes look away, or they look down. The body tightens. The body contracts. The voice gets quieter, or the voice gets louder. People laugh or smile nervously. They change the subject, or they simply say nothing at all. Believe me, I am very familiar with these responses within myself as well as in others. Whenever I share with people that I'm a sex and love coach, these responses are often the more common type of response I will receive. Delving into this a little further, I think there's a very important reason why sexuality has become one of the most heavily conditioned and controlled parts of human experience. And the reason is that our sexuality is a potent source of power, which lies underneath the society beliefs and taboos around sex. And whenever something carries that much power, life force, vulnerability, potential for transformation, as well as taboo, it becomes a natural target for shame. Think about it. Sexuality is one of the few human experiences that simultaneously activates our biology, our psychology, our relationships, our identity, and our survival instincts. That is a lot of systems being activated at once. When we become sexually attracted to someone, when we desire someone, when we allow ourselves to be desired, there is a tremendous amount happening beneath the surface. Our hormones shift, our heart rate changes, blood flow changes, neurotransmitters begin firing in different patterns, our attention narrows, our bodies become more alert and more sensitive to sensation. We become more receptive, more vulnerable, more exposed. And that word exposed is important because exposure, which we can also call visibility, is one of the things the nervous system pays very close attention to. You see, human beings have a complicated relationship with visibility. We long to be seen, yet many of us fear what will happen if we are. And this can show up in a big way when it comes to sex and our sexuality. Because sexuality requires us to reveal ourselves, not just physically, also emotionally, psychologically, energetically, relationally. Think about it. When someone sees your body, that can feel vulnerable. Absolutely. When someone knows your desires, that can feel vulnerable. When someone knows what turns you on, what excites you, what scares you, what you long for, what you fantasize about, what you need to feel connected, that is an even more and entirely different level of visibility and exposure. And wherever there is a risk of rejection, shame finds fertile ground as well as a perceived loss of power. I often think shame develops at the intersection of visibility and fear. Because when somebody rejects our ideas, it can hurt. When somebody rejects our work, it can hurt. But when somebody rejects something that feels deeply personal about our body, our attractiveness, our desire, our sexuality, our ability to connect, or our ability to perform, it often lands much deeper. The nervous system does not experience that as simple feedback. It can experience it as a threat to belonging. And belonging is one of our oldest biological needs. For most of human history, exclusion from the tribe carried real consequences. Our brains evolved in environments where connection and survival were intertwined. So even today, when there is no physical danger, the body is hardwired to react to rejection as though something much larger is at stake. And this is why shame feels so overwhelming, because underneath shame is often the fear, if you really knew me, would you still choose me? And sexuality tends to bring us directly to that question. This is also why I believe sexual shame not always is about sex itself. Sometimes it's about the shame of the actual biological experience of desire, but more often than not, they are ashamed of what they learned desire means. Maybe they learned that wanting was selfish. Maybe they learned that pleasure was dangerous. Maybe they learned that curiosity was inappropriate. Maybe they learned that their body was something to hide. Or maybe they learned that being desirable was the only way they could receive attention, affection, validation, or love. And this is where the conversation becomes more nuanced, because sexuality can absolutely be used as power. Sometimes power within ourselves, sometimes power over others, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. People can use sexuality to gain approval, to gain status, to gain attention, to influence behavior, to avoid abandonment, to secure affection, to feel valuable. And often these patterns are not manipulative in the way we usually think of manipulation. They are often survival strategies. If a young person learns that being attractive earns them safety, affection, or belonging, their nervous system may begin organizing around that reality. The body learns, if I am desirable, I am valuable. If I am attractive, I matter. If people want me, I am safe. And eventually, this stops feeling like a strategy and starts feeling like an identity. But ultimately, the problem with that form of power is that it depends entirely on someone else's response. It is external, conditional. fragile. The moment the attention disappears, so does the feeling of worth, which is why true sexual empowerment has very little to do with controlling others or being desired by everyone. It has much more to do with remaining connected to yourself, to your body, to your truth, to your desires, to your boundaries, to your capacity for pleasure, even when other people approve and even when they don't. That is a very different kind of power. That is sexual sovereignty. And I think this is where shame becomes so threatening, because shame disconnects us from ourselves. It pulls us out of our bodies, out of our truth, out of our authentic experience, and into monitoring, performing, proving, pleasing, and protecting. The irony is that the body itself does not experience sexuality as shameful. The body experiences sexuality as natural. Arousal is natural. Attraction is natural. Pleasure is natural. Connection is natural. The body says, I feel. The conditioning says, you shouldn't. The body says, I want. The conditioning says, that's dangerous. The body says, I'm curious. The conditioning says, good people don't do that. And when those messages collide over and over again, the nervous system becomes caught between aliveness and protection. One part moving toward connection, another part moving toward safety. One part wanting expression, another part fearing exposure. And over time, many people stop asking themselves and begin asking, what am I allowed to feel? And to me, that may be one of the greatest costs of sexual shame, because it disconnects us from our inner knowing. And this is where I think so much healing gets misunderstood. People often believe there is something wrong with them and they need to become more confident, more attractive, more experienced, more skilled, more knowledgeable. But many times what they actually need is a nervous system that can tolerate their own visibility and authenticity, and also tolerate the paradox between the shame that they might be feeling or experiencing and their natural desire for pleasure or sex or connection. They need a nervous system that can remain regulated while being visible. A nervous system that can experience desire without judgment, pleasure without guilt, connection without collapse. Because when that happens, something remarkable begins to unfold. Sexuality stops being something you perform. It becomes something you experience. You stop asking, how do I look? Am I doing this right? What do they think of me? And you begin asking, what am I feeling? What am I noticing? What is true for me right now? And that shift from performance to presence to sexual sovereignty may be one of the most profound antidotes to sexual shame. This is the confessional booth, a place where what has been hidden can finally be revealed, a place where shame and other internal blocks begin to lose their grip, so we can experience more pleasure, energy, freedom, and the capacity to feel more fully ourselves. If you like this episode, please rate it and subscribe and refer it to anyone you know who might benefit. For more of what I offer, head to my website, mariewagner.ca. You can find me on Facebook at Marie Wagner and on Instagram at the Marie Wagner Coach. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next episode.